Back at you again with another edition of the Concrete and Steel Chronicles. Today you in for a real treat. I'm going to have Mr. Juan here. He's going to give you a lot of history about his experience with the Tango Blast and the Texas prison system. So without further ado, Brother Juan, tell the people, give the people a little bit of introduction to who you are.
Okay, my name is Juan, and I was a member of Tango Blast from out of Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Now Tango Blast, what exactly is that? Is that a street gang? Is it a prison gang? Who are the Tango Blasts actually?
Well, originally it started out to be a prison, a bunch of homies, a bunch of homeboys, Tango, and it was originally called Tango, and then eventually became Tango Blast. And it was the four horsemen, Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, or they call it Forritos, and then Houston. And now it's gone out to the streets. You know, there's a lot of youngsters. They're taking it out to the streets now from prison.
Okay. All right. So before we get further into the Tango Blast, let's take it back a little bit. Okay, so where actually were you from on the streets? Like, did you grow up in Texas? Where's your upbringing from?
Okay, I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I was born in I lived in Dallas until I was 7. I was born in Methodist Hospital in Oak Cliff area. Then I grew up in East Dallas. But I wasn't involved in any street gangs. My first experience was when I went to prison, and then eventually I got involved with Tango Blast.
Okay, so growing up on the streets of Dallas, like what was life like for you? You say you weren't in the street gang, so what was your life like?
My mother was murdered when I was 4.5, and then my dad was in prison for 5 years in the 60s. So my father was in prison for murder. My mother was on her way to prison for murder. But my mother murdered somebody, and then a year later, they killed her in the club. It was a bar, a club, if you want. Okay. And then my father was in prison for murder. And he was doing 99 to life, or 99. So he eventually did 5. He beat it on an appeal. He got out on an appeal. So, and I grew up in East Dallas. But then with my mother's murder, and then my father being in prison, we went to live with my grandparents in West Dallas, poor neighborhood in West Dallas. Mm-hmm. And eventually, when my father was released, he remarried to my stepmother, and then they eventually were getting a divorce. So my dad took off to Phoenix, Arizona, and my sister and we went to go live with my auntie, with my tia. We went to go live with my tia in Maple Avenue. It's a red brick projects. If you're from Dallas, you know what I'm talking about. The red brick projects on Maple Avenue. That's where I lived. I lived there for like a year.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So how did your life start to change? That like, what eventually led you end up to going to prison?
The first time it was I had a drug related charge in Arizona. I did 10 years there. Mm-hmm. And then once I was released and I was paroled, I killed my number. And then I went to Colorado. And I was in Colorado and I caught an attempted murder charge. And I did 10 years there. They dropped it down to a robbery. I had a street lawyer and he fought it down to a robbery. And I ended up doing 10 years there. And then when I was released from Colorado, I went to Dallas, and then from Dallas, I started selling a lot of meth. And one day, when I was selling meth, I was arrested for I was in a stolen ride, and I was in a Honda Accord, and it was a blizzard in 2009. There was a blizzard in Dallas, and I was out there messing with the car, trying to change the fuses. And I didn't even know, man, but the cops were checking me out. They were watching me. I didn't see the cops because it was a blizzard. You know, it was white out. You know, it was all white. You know, I couldn't even see nothing around me because usually I'm alert and aware. You know, usually I'm like what they say in Spanish. I'm trucha. You know, I'm aware of my surroundings.
Right.
So they put up on me and asked me whose car it was. I said it was mine, and we started fighting. And they couldn't get me. The cops couldn't get me. I was fighting with two of them, and they couldn't get me. So an innocent bystander, he was just watching the whole thing too. He was about 6'4". He was a big guy, man. And he came and grabbed me for the cops. He came and grabbed me and body slammed me on the floor. And then that's when the cops got me. By the time the cops got me, there was already 10 cops there, and then a constable. In Texas, they have constables, and there was a constable there, and the constable said, check him. Did you guys check him? They said he said check him, and the cops told him we already did, which was a lie. They didn't check me, bro, because the whole time, if they would have checked me, the whole time I had a loaded gun in my back pocket, and that's the reason I was trying to get away. I was trying to get away because I was trying to throw the gun away because I didn't want to be caught a felon with the gun because my gun was locked and loaded, you know. Because prior to all this, I was in the Marine Corps, and that was part of my Marine Corps training. Is that whenever I carried a gun, I would have it locked and loaded, ready to go. I would just have it on safety, you know. And people that were in the military, they know what I'm talking about. You know, we all carry our guns locked and load, ready to go. We just got to take safety off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Eventually, because of that charge, aggravated assault on a police officer with a gun, I was sent to jail. I was in Lou Sterritt. They call it the Glass House in downtown Dallas. It's called Glass House. It's Lou Sterritt. And I was in Supermax. And prior to this, 20 years prior to this, when I was 20, I had gotten into a fight, which I didn't know, but I had gotten into a fight with a guy from Texas Syndicate, and I stabbed him. So they had put a hit on me. So, and then the time that I was in Dallas, this time when I got with the stolen car and the gun, this time I had did something to another family member of a family of a Texas gang, and they put a hit on me too. So now I have 2 hits on me, and I was like, man. So when I went to jail, and I say that to say this, so when I went to jail, to the county jail in Dallas, I already knew that I already had in my mind that I have to be careful and aware and alert because I have 2 hits on my life. You know what I mean? So when I went to jail, I was checking it out. You know, being military minded, I was scoping the things out, and I seen that the youngsters, you know, at that time I was 37, 38. So I'm looking at all the youngsters. They're probably like in their 20s and 25. They were checking everybody, man. Like everybody that was coming in was getting checked. Where are you from? Who you ride with? Estás encarachado? Like, are you in a car? In Spanish, are you in a car? And so I was like, you know what? But I just liked the way they carried themselves. So I started hanging out with them, and I started, you know, carrying myself with them and hanging out with them. And that was Tango Blast. You know, I seen right away that they were running everything, you know.
Okay. So now you mentioned a group, the Texas Syndicate. Now, exactly what is the Texas Syndicate? Who are they?
It's a prison gang in Texas. It's a fama. They call themselves a fama, or a family, a fama.
Okay. All right. And now would they be considered one of more like the old school gangs, old school prison gangs?
Yes. And they're also the #1 enemies of Tango Blast.
Okay. All right. So when you joined Tango Blast, I mean, how did you become a member? Did you have to put in work, or was it just a matter of saying you want to be down? Was it like a vetting process? How did all that work?
Okay, since I started hanging out with them and kicking with them, and I had already told them that I wanted to be a part of them, because remember, Now I'm facing 55 years for aggravated assault on a police officer with a gun. Because remember, I had a loaded gun in my back pocket, and I was fighting with them. So now I'm facing 55 years. You know what I mean? So knowing that I already have priors, I've already done 20 years of my life, 10 in Arizona and 10 in Colorado. I know, in my mind, I know that I'm going down south. So I'm like, that's why I started hanging out with Tango Blast. So I'm making a name. You know, I'm getting that year and a half that I was in the county jail. I probably got into like 10, 11 fights and you know, putting in work with them. But I had already told them that I want to be part of Tango Blast because they're from Texas, originally from it's a homegrown Texas gang. So they would fly kites down south and already mentioning my name, you know, telling, you know, the people down south who I am and, you know, talking about me. So I had to, when I went to the first place I went to was Hutchins. It's like a holdover prison before you go down south, because you have to have at least 3 to 4 years to go down south. So when I went to Hutchins, it's when I got my quota check. You have to do a quota check. Like there's like 2 or 3 homeboys from Tango Blast that will give you a quota check. You have to go in the restroom or wherever they choose, and you have to and you can't bend, you can't fold, you can't duck. You have to the whole time. I think it was a minute and a half. This was in 2009. It might have changed by now, but this was in 2009. So I had to get in there with 3 homeboys from Tango Blast, and for 45 seconds to a minute. And like I said, you have to stay upright and you have to be swinging the whole time.
Wow. Okay. Right. So, all right. So you get down south. So what are some of the other groups that are represented in Texas? So you get the Tango Blast, you got the Texas Syndicate. What are some of the other major gangs or prison gangs that represent inside Texas Department of Corrections?
I know you got like the AVs, you got the Crips, the Bloods, Texas Syndicate, and then you got various groups of Tango Blast. There's the ones from San Antonio, the one from El Paso, and then you got the original Tango Blast, the 4 Horsemen. Then you got like RU, Texas Syndicate, Mexicles, groups like that.
Okay. Now, do all the Tango Blasts, do they generally get along with each other? Like, say, if you're from Houston and you come meet some guys from San Antonio, do they automatically accept each other, or do they seem as one entity?
Yeah, they're cool with each other, you know.
Okay. Still there, bro?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. So generally, so if you tango, so I guess in a nutshell, if you no matter where you're from, if you Tango Blast, you're pretty much still accepted. They ride with each other.
Yes, but they know that the Tango Blast. Everybody knows. I mean, it's like an accepted fact that Tango Blast, the 4 Horsemen, the Tango Blast is the one that's running the yard. I mean, even though the other ones might be Tango, like Mexicles, and you know, they know that the main Tango is the one that's running the yard, and but the other ones are accepted, and they ride with you know, we ride together. They ride with each other. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Against.
Now, in Tango Blast, is there like how is the group organization run? Is there like a hierarchy where you have the say a general, then you have lieutenants and captains? Or is it just loosely structured where?
No president, no vice president, no lieutenants, no captains, no sergeants. No, you don't have any of that. What you have is a representative, which they call him the CIA, the one that has like the chairman or the chair, the one that has the chair. He's like the representative, because all of Tango, they vote. When there's an issue, they all vote.
Okay.
They vote. There's no one man or one person running everything. That's like family or the old school, but we're against, you know, together together against negative gang organization. Be loyal, always stay true. That's Tango Blast.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So during your time in the Texas prison system, how often did you encounter conflicts with other groups like the Texas Syndicates or Crips or Bloods or ABTs of Texas? Did you personally have any conflicts or situations where you all had to go against other groups?
No, not at all. When I was in Hutchins, and there was none of that. I know that when I was in Hutchins, um, there was a couple stabbings, and I believe it was either a Texas Syndicate or a Mexican Mafia from Texas. I'm talking about Texas Mexican Mafia and a Texas Syndicate. I believe there was a couple stabbings, but my unit wasn't out, but it was another unit, and they handled that. And we heard about it because, of course, we're going to hear about it because we're Tango Blast. But a couple of guys from Tango Blast stabbed guys from Texas Syndicate and from Mexican Mafia in Texas Mexican Mafia.
Okay.
So I that happened when I was there, and Hutchins, where I was at, is from the yard is from minimum to max.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Now you mentioned earlier that you had a hit placed out on you by the Texas Syndicate. Now, whatever happened with that? Because when you went to prison, did anyone try to pursue that, or did it just kind of die down, or did y'all have to iron the issue out?
No. That never goes away, bro. That's why, I'm careful because I have a family now, and that's why I'm careful because I don't want them to think that I'm over here high-siding or clowning them, so I'm very careful because I have a family now. And, I spoke with you earlier, before our interview, and I've given my life to God. I believe in, a higher power, so that's the reason I'm careful, but that never goes away, bro. So that's why I have to be careful. But no, that doesn't go away. And when I was in the prison system, there was nobody else on the yard. There was no TS, there was no Mexican. All that was in the yard is Tango Blast, and then the other ones, like Mexicles and Orejones from San Antonio, and from Chuco, from the ones from Chuco, from El Paso. So I knew that I was okay, but even though, if somebody would have tried to run up or try to do something, then I would have to, handle my business. But it wouldn't have got that far because I was with Tango Blast. You know what I mean? Okay.
Right.
So now the guy would have probably got aired out. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. Now, was there a presence of Paisas during your time?
Yes, the Paisas were there, but they just, and even Paisas have a tango. You know what I mean? Yes, even they have a tango, and so it was, everybody got along, bro. As long as you were not in a family, in a car, like in an old school, like you said, like old school car, like Mexican Mafia from Texas, or Texas Syndicate, or RU, or the other ones, then you were okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what did the Paisas Tango call themselves?
Oh man, I think they're called, if I can remember, I'm trying to see. Chuco, I know that's El Paso. Tango Mexicles.
Okay.
Tango Mexicles, and then you have the ones from El Paso. They're called Tango or Chuco Tango, because if you know, El Paso is called Chuco, so that's Chuco Tango, and then the Tango Blast from Mexico is Tango Mexicles, I think.
Okay, all right. So that was a clear distinction. So you had the Paisas, you had the Tango Paisas, so they were clearly two distinct groups.
Yes.
Okay.
All and right. Then from Chuco, and then and then San Antonio is Orejones. Mm-hmm. But they all get along, you know what I mean?
Okay. All right. Now let me ask you this, because you mentioned that you did like a solid 10 years in Arizona. What was the difference between the way the Arizona prisons ran and the way they ran in Texas?
In Arizona, the M or the Mexican Mafia runs that in Arizona, and then for the white boys, it's the AB runs it, and then the black guys, I think it's the Crips and Bloods, if I remember.
Okay.
And then they have some Sureños in Arizona also, but they're by themselves. You know, they run by themselves.
Okay. Okay. And as far as like structure and stuff like that, which system had the most structure and stuff like that?
Oh, I would definitely say Arizona.
Okay. Okay.
Because in Tango, there's really nuts. It's like a it's like a bunch of rebels. You know, there's some structure, but it's not as strict as the famas. It's not as strict as the families. I mean, like you can't do this, you can't do that. There's a lot of you can't do's. You can't talk to certain people. You can't sit with certain people. You know, you can't deal with certain people. But in Tango, it's like, you know, if it makes money, it makes sense. To them, that's like, if it makes money, it makes sense. So it doesn't matter if it's with white, black, paisa, it don't matter. But like in Arizona, it was more structured. Like you can't do this, you can't do that. So there was more structure in Arizona.
Okay. So now when you were in Arizona, so what did you run? Were you considered alone?
By myself.
By
myself.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Does that make things difficult for you? Or is
No.
that common to see people run by themselves?
No, in Arizona, you can run by yourself as long as you're righteous and you're not doing anything wrong, or you know you're not acting a fool. You'll be okay. I had friends that were Mexican Mafia. I had friends that were AB. I had friends that were from Glendale. I had friends that were Bloods and Crips. I thought there was a riot or something that I knew where my lane was. I knew where I had to sit in. You sit in where you fit in. So you know, I knew the politics and I knew the do's and don'ts. Okay. As long as you do the do's and don'ts, then you'll be all right.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me more about that. So if a riot happened, what were you expected to do? Just to get off to the side, or not get involved, or you expected to take a side and get involved?
Yeah, you have to get involved. If you're black, then you better. If you're black, you better go against the Mexicans. If you're Mexican, you better, whoever you're fighting against, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, a believer, or it don't matter what you're doing either. You're not gangbanging. It doesn't matter. If there's a riot, a race riot against another group, you better be involved, because if not, after the race riot, they're going to come looking for you.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
So there's no excuse. I'm a Christian. I don't get him. Because you're going to get dealt with. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or you're a peaceful person. It doesn't matter. You have to get involved.
Okay. So, so in Arizona, so picking it back off that, so when you say in Arizona, what's the overarching factor of how people click it up? Is it more of a race thing or an organization thing?
To get clicked up in Arizona?
Yeah, what's the overriding factor? Is it more racial politics, or is it more gang politics?
I would probably say more gang politics.
Okay.
You have to be righteous and for them to even consider you. You know, okay. But if you want to do your own thing, you can do your own thing. Like you don't have to get kicked up.
Okay. Okay.
And that goes for, I'm pretty sure. Like I'm just gonna talk about Colorado, Arizona, and Texas, because that's where I did my time. So I can't talk about all prison systems, but the prison systems that I was in, if you wanted to do your own thing, you can do your own thing.
Okay. Okay. And then also another thing. Now getting back to Texas, like I say, I know it was a large presence of you said Tango Blast. But say like someone comes in, they're unaffiliated. Unaffiliated black guy, unaffiliated white guy, is he free to walk anywhere on the yard? Is he free to eat with who he wants to eat with? Or does Texas still have that kind of like, okay, nah, blacks are over here, Mexicans over here? How does those politics work in Texas?
If he was by himself, yeah, he could do whatever he wants, but majority, he should like stay with his own race.
Okay.
And Tango does have designated yard areas and showers and where we sit. and people already know that as they come in, people will let them know, you can't shower over there, or you can't eat over there, or you can't wreck over there because that's Tango's area.
Okay. And then is Tango Blast one of those groups where it's just strictly Hispanics, or do they have people from other races in their ranks?
Well, when I was in there, I was seeing strictly Hispanic, Latino, Chicano, Mexicano, but I also seen a couple of white guys.
Okay. All right. Okay. So fast forward a little bit. You're doing your time, stuff like that. You're down with the Tango Blast. When do you start to say, you know what, this isn't for me? When do you start to turn your life around, and why? Did something specific happen that made you wake up, or was it a gradual process? Talk about that a little bit.
It was a gradual process. When I beat my charge in Texas, and then I didn't get 55 years, which I was looking at for 55 years for a year and a half when I was in jail fighting it in Loose Steric in Supermax. I was up there fighting my case for a year and a half. And it was surprising because I was acting a fool. I mean, you would think that I would behave and calm down, but I was acting a fool. Like I said, in the year and a half, I probably got into like 10 or 11 fights. I was trying to prove myself and trying to make a name for myself, so that way Tango would see that I was down. But you would have thought that I would, calm down, because at this time I'm already like 38 years old. You know what I mean? And that was another thing I forgot to bring up. Tango Blast was going to bless me in, because they said, well, since you're 38, 39, we're going to bless you in. We're not going to give you a quota check. We're not going to make you go. And I said, you know what? No, that's not me. I'm going to get in like everybody else got in. And I think that impressed them. But at the same time, I think that it pissed them off, because I was, because I told them, you know what? Now I don't want to get blessed in. I want to get in how everybody else got in. So they put 3 homies on me. But like I said, I think it kind of impressed them, but I also think it kind of pissed them off, because they were like, okay, this is what you want. This is what you're going to get. So I got in like everybody else did. I didn't want to get blessed in. I got in like everybody else. So the gradual process in my life was when I was released, because I only did 2.5 years, because I did a year and a half in Loose Steric, the Glass House, and then I did a year and a half in Hutchins. And then when I was released, I went back to Dallas. And the funny thing is, I made all these promises to God and to myself that I'm gonna, get right, because you have to remember, I was looking at 55 years, man. 1 week before trial, they lost the gun. So I only did 2.5 years for a stolen car, because I told them, I said, because they weren't going down on the 55-year offer. So I told them, you know what? Let's run it then. Let's go to trial. So 1 week before trial, my lawyer came in and said, I got good news and bad news. I said, what's the good news? He said, they lost the gun. I was like, what? Man. So he said, but the bad news is you still got to do a year and a half. I already did a year and a half. Now he said, you have to do another year and a half. So I was like, all right. So that was the bad news, but that was the good news, because remember, I was facing 55 years.
Right.
So so that was a gradual change, because I was like, because look, bro, at the time I was 38, I've already done 20 years. So if I would have got that 55 years, I would still be in prison right now. I would have died in prison. You know what I mean? And that's the reason I joined Tango Blast, because in my mind, I was going down south. In my mind, I was doing those 55 years. So that's the reason I was involved. I got involved with Tango Blast, because I knew that I already had trouble with 2 different families, and it would be in my best interest to join Tango Blast. And that's the reason I joined them. So the process, the process for me to get out, well, that's one thing. That's another thing that I like about Tango, because when you get out, you're out. But if you stay in prison or jail, then you have to represent. But when you get out, you're out. It's not a blood in, blood out family. You know what I mean? Okay. And that was another thing that attracted me to them, because once I was released, I could go and do whatever I wanted. But what I did when I got released, I hooked up with a bunch of Tango Blasts that were on the streets, and they were drug dealing. So I fit in right in with them. And, I told them that I was Tango, and they were all Tangos. There was about 10, 15 of them, and they were all dealing drugs. and they had a hookup with the cartel. Well, the main guy that was running that was Tango Blast. So I fit right in, you know. And I was like, look, I'm Tango Blast. He was Tango Blast, and he was running the whole thing for the cartel. So I fit in right in with them, with those guys, like 10 or 15 of them. Mm-hmm. So you would have thought that I would have learned my lesson, bro, but I didn't. I still stayed there for some like 3 or 4 months. And then eventually, because the guys that had a hit on me, they found me. And then there was like 3 or 4 different occasions that I was running for my life. I was ducking and dodging, running through ditches, canals, backyard. You know, I was running from a couple carloads of guys with guns. So eventually I said, you know what, I just got to get out of here, man, because I don't want to, because I was going to get a gun and start I'll start all over again, just, you know, pack a gun and start walking the streets with a gun. And I was like, you know what, I just beat a case. I was looking at 55 years. I got to stop, man. I can't be doing this no more, man. So I ended up going to Colorado. You know, I eventually left after the last time that I was chased, and so I eventually left. So that was the gradual change in my life.
Okay. So in the time we have left, so talk about what's life like for you. What's life like for you today?
Okay, today, like I said, the gradual change is I eventually moved to Colorado, and then I met my wife. You would have thought that I would have learned, bro. So I left Texas and I went to Colorado, and I got involved with another girl, a white girl, and I started, you know, she had some connections, and we started getting high again, and then some crooked businesses and some drug dealers asked me if I would start collecting for them. So I became a collector. I started collecting for crooked businesses and drug dealers. So one day I did a job. I was collecting on a guy, and that's how I met my wife. I beat this guy up, and I went back looking for him that evening. I beat him up in the daytime, like around 12, and I went back to look for him around 9 or 10 to go collect the money. And that's how I met my wife. It was my wife's next door neighbor. So I ended up meeting my wife, and we were together for a couple months. And my wife was like, you know what? The other girl that I was with, her car, she had a really nice car, and her car had been stolen, and the cops were trying to blame it on me. So now I'm facing a grand theft auto, and I was like, I had to fight that. So my wife was like, at the time she was my girlfriend, she's like, you know, we need to leave, get out of here, because we're just getting so much trouble. You know, you're still getting high. We were both getting high, and, you know, just living crazy. So the day we came to California, and the day we left, the very next day, I got a phone call saying they found the car. So I think the cops were just trying to send me back to prison, bro. Okay. You know, because the cops knew who I was, you know. So I think that they were just trying to put me in prison. But as soon as we got to California, the next day, they called. Somebody called me. One of my homies, a friend of mine, called me and said that the car had been found. Wow. So my wife and my wife's been clean for 11 years. I've been clean now 9 years. You know, I used to slam meth. You know what they say, once you slam meth, you'll never stop. But, you know, I've been clean and sober now for 9 years from drugs and alcohol. I became a youth pastor. I was ordained pastor. And now, you know, I have a home. I have a daughter. Well, I have 8 daughters, but from 8 different women. But I have my daughter from my wife, and she's 9 years old. And, you know, I'm blessed, bro. You know, God has been good to me. And, you know, I'm blessed, bro. You know, and once you experience peace, you never want to experience that drama again. You never want to go back to that drama. Once you experience that peace, bro, I'm telling you, you never want to experience or go through that drama again.
Nice. Definitely. Okay. Well, so in closing, that's really fascinating that, you know, you had all those near misses and you was able to constantly turn your life around, and you've been on a straight and narrow, you know, for the past 9 years. That's awesome. So in closing, bro, anything you would like to say to the youth or anything out here? Any words of wisdom from just all your collective years of experience in and out the prison system?
Yes. Well, just real quick, I just want to go back real quick
Okay, yeah,
because
sure.
I think it's important to say this because I asked me about some other gangs that are what I seen, and then I'm going to say something to the youth. But when I was in Texas, when I was in the prison system, I seen that there was a couple in the yard that I was in. There was a couple of Latin Kings and a couple of Sureños, and they were allowed. Tango Blast gave them. They let them make it. They told them, look, we know it's only you or two of you, so we're gonna let you guys make it. But there's no congregation and there's no recruiting, so they, so they let them make it. You know what I mean? Like it was a couple of Sureños, a couple of Norteños, and Latin Kings. So, and I did see that, but but like I said, as long as they weren't trying to recruit or represent, then they were fine. You know what I mean?
Okay, so if they had started to say, if they had started to recruit new members, Tango Blast would have smashed them off the yard or something?
Yes. So they did allow them. They said, we're going to allow you to stay on the yard because it's only you, like you and your other homie, or one or two. So we'll allow you guys to stay on the yard. Like they give them, like they let them make it. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay.
But the other thing that I want to say in closing is I just want to say to the youth, I know, I didn't, there were some things I didn't touch on. I had a hard upbringing too myself, so I know that a lot of times the youth, they're looking for that acceptance or that family love. And I just want to tell you guys that because I also was abused in every way, physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually. I was abused too as a child. And I think that's why I had so much anger. I had so much anger in me that, my first, to resolve conflict, my first thing was to fight, to stab you, to shoot you. That was my first instinct because that's what I learned as a child, as a very angry child, to lash out in anger. So I just want to say to the youth that might hear this, please, I want to reiterate to you guys, there is no future in gangbang. There is no future in drug dealing. There's not. You know what I mean? I've been out of trouble for almost 10 years now, and I've been clean and sober. And like I said, if you just keep working at it and believe in yourself, and I have a home now. I have a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful daughter. And I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. That's all I can say is I'm blessed. So I don't have to look behind my back. When the cops get behind me, I don't have to look behind my back. And like I said, when I experienced all that drama as a child and then growing up, and then now I've experienced so much peace. Why would I want to go back to that drama? Peace is where it's at, bro. I mean, I sleep good, and I'm blessed, bro. The Most High, the Most High has protected me and taken care of me. I was homeless, living drug house to drug house, being the doorman, so once you experience peace, you don't want to go back to that, man. True peace, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that was some very powerful words of wisdom right there. So I guess we can close on that note. So I just want to thank you, Brother Juan, for taking time out your busy day to come on my platform and share your story. I know that wasn't easy to relive some of that stuff, but people need to hear it. So I'm so glad you decided to share it. So there you have it, YouTube. This has been another edition of the Concrete and Steel Chronicles. I hope you enjoyed. So stay tuned until the next edition. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you, PNG.
You're very welcome, brother.
All right.